that recording. So I'm here and you're all here, and I'm happy to be here. Good to see you again. I see Marilyn, and nice to see you. Thanks for being here. So I'm filling in for Daryl this morning. I think she's visiting family, if I'm not mistaken. Her son and grandkids. So hopefully Daryl is having safe and happy travels wherever she is. And if anyone here celebrates Easter or Passover, any of these other days, then Easter. As they arrive, my name is Mina, and I have been through the mentorship program at True North Insight with Daryl and many other teachers. And you may remember me. I've been here before. I've filled in for Daryl in the past, and I also recently led the BIPOC Sangha. So although that one isn't recorded, but and I lead some other meditation groups and sanghas and secular mindfulness groups. So you may see me around. I've been around. So it's my pleasure to be here. And I see some people are still arriving. That's great. I'm recording myself only, just so you know, as always. What I wanted to do today is I'll begin with a brief land acknowledgement, contemplation, and chanting of the refuges. And then I'll move right into the topic that I know you've been covering with Daryl, that you've been exploring on the Satipatthana Sutta. And in particular, I know that Daryl wanted to continue the exploration of the hindrances. And so I'm going to be doing this in a particular way. I'll go over the hindrances and then I'll focus on one hindrance in particular, as well as a practice that may help support you as you encounter this one. So I'm going to hold the suspense and not tell you what it is until a few minutes from now. But trust me when I say that this is one of those hindrances that we all experience at some point, and it's particularly challenging for me personally, and possibly for many others as well. So we'll begin. I invite you to take a comfortable posture, and perhaps if you have some aspect of nature in your environment, or you can look out a window where you can see a tree or the ground, your front lawn or back garden, or deck where you might have some tulips starting to bloom. It's spring when tulips arrive. So maybe just contemplating some aspect of nature as we engage in this land acknowledgement practice together. And I want to share my gratitude for the opportunity to live on this land and to work and live and engage in joyful activities on this land to benefit from this land. So I acknowledge this opportunity that I have, this sacred land that I'm on, that we are all on in various places, all of the gifts and resources that I've received and benefited from. My gratitude for being here. So I am an immigrant settler on this land. I arrived from South Africa when I was 10 years old via Portugal, and my ancestors are from India, from South Asia. So many, many different lands that my ancestors and I have been on, but I've settled here in Canada, and so have this opportunity to be here. And this land that I'm on, all of Canada has been and continues to be the site of human activity for a long, long time, over 15,000 years. And some recent research shows perhaps in the 100,000 range, 130, if I'm not mistaken. This land, the city of Toronto, Toronto, is where I live and work. You may be in other regions, other parts of the country. It's the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And this land in particular is covered by Treaty 13. And the treaties vary across the country. And if you're curious to discover, if you don't already know, the history of the land or the name of the region you're in, the indigenous name, then I encourage you to go to nativeland.ca. That's a website that shares this information. There's many sites on the internet. But my particular commitment is to care for the land as best I can, to spread awareness of ways in which we can take care of the land, ways in which we can honor the indigenous people whose land this is, and how we can restore and repair relations, as well as ways of giving back the land. And so you may have your own commitments, your own wishes to learn about, to share together, to grow in your awareness. And I encourage you to maybe take a moment now to set those intentions, as I will do for the next few moments in silence. And I'll invite us now to chant the 3 refuges together. You can do this in your own space. I'm just gonna pull up, in case you haven't memorized it, as many people maybe have not. I'll just pull up the chant so that I can share that with you, either on the screen or the chat. Give me a moment. And as we prepare to chant together, I invite you again to take a comfortable posture and supportive, and maybe reflecting on this idea of refuge. What does taking refuge mean to you? How do you take refuge? What resources support you in your practice and in your life? The thing to think about, to keep in the back of your awareness as you engage in this chant. And I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. We'll begin. You can place your hands either together in this mudra or hands on the lap, whatever you feel comfortable with. And you can chant along, unmute yourself, chant out loud with me, or just chant in your own space, or just listen to the rest of us chanting. So we'll begin with honoring the Buddha, paying homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And then taking refuge 3 times. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. In the translation, to the Buddha, I go for refuge. To the Dhamma, I go for refuge. To the Sangha, I go for refuge. For the second time, to the Buddha, to the Dhamma, to the Sangha, I go for refuge. And for the third time, to the Buddha, to the Dhamma, to the Sangha, I go for refuge. So I'd like to now continue on with a bit of sharing on the Satipatthana Sutta. And I'd like to read excerpts of the sutta that Daryl may have already read to you, or you may have read yourself, just as a way to kind of ground ourselves in the text. And we'll flow through the various pieces that I'll cover today, and we'll end with a practice. We'll have some time for sharing at the end. So my intention today is to talk a little bit in general about the Satipatthana, the 4 Satipatthanas, the hindrances, and then I want to focus more on the hindrance of aversion or ill will. And this is one that comes up a lot for me, and particularly has come up a lot throughout COVID and post-COVID with everything that I've been dealing with and seeing in the world. And I suspect that all of us, most of us, are not strangers to this hindrance, that it does come up from time to time. And so I'm hoping to offer a practice that will support all of us as we sit with the hindrances and kind of move through them, in particular this one, the one of aversion. So I'll begin with briefly reciting some of the sutta, just as a kind of reminder of the various parts. Beginning with the beginning, the Blessed One said this: "This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding." In other words, the 4 frames of reference. Which 4? He asks. There is the case where a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. He remains focused on feelings, mind, mental qualities in and of themselves, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So the first part is the body. And how does a monk remain focused on the body and of itself, in and of itself? There is the case where a monk, having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree or to an empty building, sits down, folding his legs crosswise, holding his body erect, and setting mindfulness to the fore. Always mindful, he breathes in, mindful, he breathes out. And when I say he, and I refer to monks, this is the language of the suttas, but we can think of it as they or she, any gender, any person who's practicing, a practitioner, a member of the Sangha that we have here. Breathing in long, he discerns, I am breathing in long. Or breathing out long, he discerns, I am breathing out long. Breathing in short, he discerns, I am breathing in short. Or breathing out short, he discerns, I am breathing out short. And this part of the sutta continues very much in parallel to the Anapanasati Sutta, the 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing. So going through all of the steps related to the body, of breath, of relaxing the body, of coming into a more concentrated state, and so on. Moving on to the next Satipatthana, the next foundation of mindfulness, feelings. And the sutta goes, how does a monk remain focused on feelings in and of themselves? There is the case where a monk, when feeling a painful feeling, discerns, I am feeling a painful feeling. When feeling a pleasant feeling, he discerns, I am feeling a pleasant feeling. When feeling neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he discerns, I am feeling a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. And this refers to the feeling tones, the pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, as we refer to them today, generally. So just having this awareness that something pleasant is here, something unpleasant is here, something neutral is here. And maybe taking that a step further and recognizing, how am I responding to this pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? What happens in the next moment? Because often this is the place where something is birthed, something is born, that then manifests itself in the next moment through our thoughts, our actions, our behaviors, our body sensations. And then the next Satipatthana, next foundation of mindfulness is the mind. How does a monk remain focused on the mind in and of itself? There is the case where a monk, when the mind has passion, discerns that the mind has passion. When the mind is without passion, he discerns that the mind is without passion. When the mind has aversion, he discerns that the mind has aversion. And when the mind is without aversion, he discerns that the mind is without aversion. When the mind has delusion, he discerns that the mind has delusion. When the mind is without delusion, he discerns that the mind is without delusion. In this very kind of simple way, naming what's here, naming the state that the mind is in, mind state, the mental kind of formation that's here, knowing, discerning when it's here. And that's kind of the first step. Now continue on to the last one, the mental qualities or dhammas or phenomena that occur. So hindrances are part of this. The aggregates are part of this. The 6 sense doors are a part of this. 7 factors of awakening and the 4 noble truths. Many, many parts that are covered here in the sutta. And I'm going to focus on the hindrances and talk a little bit about those, and again, continue reading from the suttas on the hindrances. So now How does a monk remain focused on mental qualities in and of themselves? There is the case where a monk remains focused on mental qualities in and of themselves with reference to the five hindrances. How does a monk practice mind object contemplation on the mental objects of the five hindrances? So herein, monks, when sensual desire is present in him, the monk knows there is sensual desire in me. Or when sensual desire is absent, he knows there is no sensual desire in me. He knows how the arising of non-arisen sensual desire comes to be. He knows how the rejection of the arisen sensual desire comes to be. And he knows how the non-arising in the future of the rejected sensual desire comes to be. This is all of the aspects of awareness. When it's here, when it's not here. When it has not arisen, how does it arise? When it has arisen, how does it stop? How might it arise in the future? So all of these aspects, and the same kind of refrain continues with sensual desire or attachment. Sometimes we call it ill will or aversion, knowing it, knowing when it's not there, knowing how to be with it when it shows up, knowing how it might show up. Sloth and torpor are the next. So we have sensual desire or attachment, aversion or ill will, sloth and torpor, maybe a state of listlessness or lack of motivation or helplessness, perhaps. And then there's restlessness or anxiety. Maybe it shows up as anxiety, restlessness, remorse. And the last one is doubt, skeptical doubt. And I want to actually share something with you. It's a visual of them all, just to kind of, for those of you that are visual, to help frame this. So this is just a few visuals actually of the hindrances in general. So you should be able to see this now. If you can't, please let me know. So these are the obstacles to meditation, the blocks to practice, what may get in the way when we are seeking to be present in the moment, when we're practicing. And they also get in the way in life. They also actually cause some suffering in our everyday lives. So the hindrances are in this particular slide, they're called lustful desires, or think of them as attachment. There's ill will, hatred, or aversion, sloth, torpor, a kind of laziness, restlessness, worry, maybe anxiety, skepticism, doubt, suspicion. It could be doubt about the practice, doubt of ourselves. All of these could be internalized, externalized, show up in our everyday lives. And then this is an interesting one, and I got this from Dharma Punks. They use this really, really great visual of comparing, and this is actually part of the sutta. It's from the sutta, this idea, but they compare each of the hindrances to water, different types of water. So, for example, ill will, vyapada, boiling water. Ill will is boiling water. You may have felt this, if you've ever felt angry or upset or resentful or something, or you have like stirred up kind of feelings. It might feel like a pot of boiling water is about to like spill over or something. Sloth and torpor, tina midda, water with slimy moss, kind of stagnant, something floating on top of it. restlessness and remorse, uddacha kukucha, water ruffled with wind, water ruffled with wind, restlessness, it's like stirred up, and doubt, vichikicha, water in a dark place, water in a dark place. It's not being seen, it's not being clear, in a dark place. Sensory desire or attachment, kamaraga, colored water, colored water. So this is just one way of keeping in mind the flavor, the type of, I guess, sensory provocation or something like that that these hindrances bring up. And in the middle is presence. Right? Presence is clear water, stillness, being in the present moment, seeing clearly. Even when these arise, we know that we are in the present moment and we don't have to kind of fall into that pool of boiling water or colored water or whatever is coming up. And then the last visual I have for you is kind of another chart. So that the opposites here is kind of a key. So when there is sensual desire, the opposite is kind of a true happiness, a deeper happiness. So cultivating perhaps sympathetic joy as a support, or gratitude. The discontent or the aversion, the boiling water, joy, again, cultivating joy, piti, joy. And for this one also, we'll see a little bit later that loving kindness, compassion, these can be helpful antidotes. And we're going to practice this in a little bit. Next, laziness and torpor, or sloth and torpor. Here they call it frozen water. And so supports looking at your resources, knowing that you have resources, activation like movement can be helpful. It's not all in this chart, but these are just sort of practical ideas. And you might start to think about what helps you when you are in one of these states. What helps you when you are practicing? What are your resources, your supports when you encounter one of these hindrances? And they can be related to each other. So anxiety can very much be related to aversion, and one can lead to the other. Mental agitation and remorse. So this is the restlessness, the concentration of the mind to a single point. So coming back to groundedness, to a sense of presence, to maybe engaging with the five senses and really feeling, seeing, naming what you can feel and see or hear and touch. And then finally, doubt. So by this, I think what is meant here is curiosity. Curiosity. What is here right now? What is going on right now? What's happening? So I hope that these visuals support in some way your exploration of the hindrances, how you meet them. And we'll talk a little bit more about ill will, this is kind of the focus of today's talk. And I've got a few more excerpts to read. And then we'll continue on to a practice, a little bit more sharing and then a practice. So ill will or aversion. So from the suttas, from the Samyutta Nikaya, the nourishment of ill will and the denourishing of ill will. The sutta talks about these. There are objects causing aversion, frequently giving unwise attention to them. This is the nourishment of the arising of ill will that has not yet arisen, and for the increase and strengthening of ill will that has already arisen. So giving unwise attention to the things causing aversion can increase it. Denourishing of ill will. This is the liberation of the heart by loving kindness. Frequently giving wise attention to it. This is the denourishing of the arising of ill will that has not yet arisen, and the decrease and weakening of ill will that has already arisen. So loving kindness. And I would extend that to the other Brahma Viharas: loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. And so the advice here from the sutta is from one of the other suttas, the Majjhima Nikaya. Cultivate the meditation on loving kindness. For by cultivating the meditation on loving kindness, ill will disappears. Cultivate the meditation on compassion. For by cultivating the meditation on compassion, cruelty disappears. Cultivate the meditation on sympathetic joy. For by cultivating the meditation on sympathetic joy, listlessness disappears. Cultivate the meditation on equanimity. For by cultivating the meditation on equanimity, anger disappears. So these things, these are a few things that are helpful in being with ill will or aversion, which arises naturally in the human condition. We don't like things as they are. Something happens against us or not supporting us. This is hard for us. We have aversion to a particular state of being. I have a lot of aversion to certain types of text messages I get, or certain conversations that are about to happen, or certain relationships bring up a lot of aversion. I don't like sudden loud noises. A lot of aversion arises. Construction, living in the city, or I'm trying to sleep and someone's having a party outside, or whatever it might be. Or I'm trying to meditate and there's a dog barking. So it depends on whatever your particular thing is that you get triggered by, in a way, that brings out these feelings. These are just some ways that we can approach them, that we can approach ourselves even as we respond to them, because often I feel like we're hard on ourselves for reacting. So how can we even bring these to ourselves as we approach what arises in the world? And non-judgment and compassion for myself, for example, has helped me a lot in my practice with aversion, because I notice it a lot. I notice it quite a bit in small ways and big ways, in sustained ways over time, this kind of thing. So 6 ways that may be helpful. Learning how to meditate on loving kindness, devoting oneself to the meditation on loving kindness, contemplating on kamma. Kamma in Sanskrit is karma. So considering that one is the owner and heir of one's actions. So this is not about self-blame or self-judgment. It's just about recognizing that this idea of cause and effect, it may be from the deep, deep, far away past. It may be from yesterday. There can be a residue left of something that's happened, something that has been unconscious, that has arisen, that is affecting how we feel now. And that's leading to one of these hindrances, maybe in meditation or in sleep even. Frequent reflection on it in the following way. So this is the teaching from the commentary on the Satipatthana Sutta. Being angry with another person, what can you do to him? Can you destroy his virtue and his other good qualities? Have you not come to your present state by your own actions, and will also go hence according to your own actions? Anger towards another is just as if someone wishing to hit another person takes hold of glowing coals, or a heated iron rod, or of excrement. So this is from the commentary, so they're quite old, and the language is not in today's kind of language. And in the same way, if the other person is angry with you, what can he do to you? Can he destroy your virtue and your other good qualities? He too has come to his present state by his own actions, and will go hence according to his own actions. Like an unaccepted gift or handful of dirt thrown against the wind, his anger will fall back on his own head. So my interpretation of this is not to say victimize yourself or blame yourself, but it's more about discerning, maybe taking kind of a responsibility, choosing what you can control, what you can't control, knowing how we want to show up in the world. I may be angry, but how do I want to express that anger? How do I want to use that anger? Because that is a force that's telling me something is wrong. Something is not right with me. I'm hurt. I've been disrespected. I don't like what's happening right now. Maybe it's an injustice going on in the world. How do I want to proceed in addressing that injustice against me or against a friend, community, someone in the world? So I think this is about this frequent reflection on it. It's like a self-reflection, a measured approach, an equanimous approach. And then the last two are noble friendship, kind of this kalyana mita, noble friendship, spiritual friendship, and suitable conversation. Maybe that happens in therapy, maybe it happens in a Dharma group, but just kind of processing with suitable conversation. Maybe someone who understands your point of view or your worldview and how you want to approach the world. So the Brahma Viharas, as you may have gathered, can really come into this in a powerful way as a support to being with the hindrances, to approaching the hindrances. Metta being the most fundamental, friendship, goodwill, loving kindness. It is said to be the motivation that led the Buddha to search for awakening, to teach this path to others. Karuna, compassion. This is an application of metta, the goodwill we feel when encountering suffering. So the capacity to understand, maybe empathize with that suffering, and the wish to alleviate it. So it has this action component of alleviating, transforming, helping to transform suffering. And then mudita, another application of loving kindness, which is sympathetic, empathetic, or resonant joy. The goodwill we feel when we encounter the happiness of others. How do we feel when we see a friend happy, when we see a child laughing, a dog playing, a blooming tulip? That is a kind of happiness we can feel that is sympathetic, empathetic. And finally, equanimity, upekkha, which is a little different than the others. It helps us to maintain balance in our views, like balance of opposites, setting boundaries, practicing non-discrimination, non-duality. And when we witness extreme suffering and we don't have the control to stop it, but it affects us, we know it affects us, the suffering of that. When we witness it, we need equanimity to avoid the second arrow of additional suffering that might freeze us in our tracks. It might debilitate us. So then we can't take upon ourselves any compassionate action for that suffering. Rather, what we need is equanimity to balance us, we recognize that suffering, we care for ourselves in the moment first, and then it gives us some space. So it allows us to channel our energy to where we might be able to help. Even if it's a situation I can't change it, I can't change systems of oppression. I can't change the government necessarily single-handedly. But maybe I can organize myself with other people and try to do something good in the world and raise awareness and do different things. So we can approach things in a way that it's not indifferent or lacking in feeling. In fact, there's a lot of feeling behind it, so much so that we have to balance it, we have to moderate it in order to be effective in the steps that we take in our practice. So these are attitudes that we can develop. These are practices we can undertake. And we're going to do one such practice in a few moments. I'll just say a few more words, another sort of series of steps maybe that could help us in dealing with these hindrances or being with them when they show up in life and on the cushion, right, in the practice. So these 5 hindrances that get in the way of our individual paths or individual paths of practice, the attachment or sensual desire, ill will or aversion, sloth and torpor, restlessness and doubt, skeptical doubt. In order to bring meaning and value into our lives, we can seek to, some say, master ourselves or have a kind of understanding and way of approaching these that don't allow the hindrances to stop us in our tracks, but rather they can be used as a tool for awakening. Anger can be a great tool for awakening. Lama Rod Owens talks a lot about anger and love and rage being a real tool for understanding, motivation, and awakening. And these hindrances are part of our conditioning. So there are some ways we can align and structure our lives to prevent these hindrances from taking root. First, recognizing, naming, seeing, knowing they are there without that judgment and the stuckness that happens around them. Just, I'm human, I will experience these, they will arise, they're a phenomena, right? Part of the 4th Satipatthana. They're a phenomena that will occur when this happens. So recognizing them, accepting and acknowledging the situation or the person and letting it be, even just for the moment, letting it be, seeing it, but not jumping in and kind of doing anything to it for a moment. Investigating why, what are the consequences? What's really going on here? What are the layers that I need to understand? What's happening? What's in me? What's in them? What's in the world? And non-identifying. I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am not the emotion. But you can see these are not these. So this idea of no self, no fixed, permanent self. We're changing, we're evolving, not identifying with these formations, these physical manifestations of how we show up in the world. So as we, move forward, we can contemplate on the Brahma Viharas as a way of balancing and helping us with the hindrances, and also how the hindrances may show up in our lives and how they may show up in our practice. So I'd like to now take you into a meditation practice. So giving you a moment to settle yourself in a posture that feels supportive for you. You can lie down for this, you can sit, stand, whatever feels appropriate for your body. Being comfortable, yet alert and awake. Closing the eyes or keeping a soft, unfocused gaze. And offering yourself soothing and supportive touch. That's a choice. You may wish to do that, you may not. It could be a reminder to bring awareness, maybe a kind or loving awareness to whatever is here right now, to your experience, to yourself. Feeling into the body in this posture and the body breathing. Sensations of the body supported by the earth, hands on the lap, feet on the floor. Sensations of breathing. And taking a few slow, full breaths. And as you are breathing, paying attention to the sensations of breath, breath as a connection, a way of being in the present moment through paying attention to the breath. And as you are settling into this awareness of your breath, sensations of breath entering and leaving the body, the rhythm of the breath. Chest or belly rising with the inhale, falling with the exhale. And as you are practicing, also paying attention to what might take you away from presence. Right now, you are in the present moment, connected through the breath as it is. What might take you away from presence if something arises? These are the hindrances, the blocks to practice. What might help you come back to presence and stay connected with presence? Notice how each in-breath nourishes your body. Perhaps how each out-breath soothes the body. Letting the breath find its own natural rhythm, feeling these sensations of breathing in and breathing out. Tension may wander. At times, the thoughts may enter into the mind or sensations in the body. You may notice a kind of quality of what arises. There's a sense of pleasantness, perhaps noticing the feeling or the wish to have it last a little bit longer, have it not go away. If there is unpleasantness in a thought or sensation or sound arising in the background, maybe noticing the wish to make it go away, kind of aversion. And maybe there's a sense of agitation or the absence of agitation, ease, calm settling into the body, noticing the presence or the absence of one of these. Maybe you're feeling sleepy, tired, want to just drift into a nap or drift into a dream state. It can be doubt arising. Am I doing this right? What is he talking about? How is this even connected? Whatever it is, getting curious about what's here. Re-energizing your intention, your breath, bringing in through the breath a sense of kindness and compassion for yourself, whatever you're experiencing right now. And as you breathe in, breathing in kindness and compassion for yourself. Feeling the quality of kindness and compassion as you breathe in. Perhaps noticing a tendency to judge yourself for whatever may be arising that is unpleasant or unwanted or misunderstood, and offering compassion, understanding, support for whatever is here. Knowing that you can always come back to this place of breathing in compassion for yourself, for your current situation, for whatever is showing up in this moment. You always come back here as you need. As a supportive gesture. I'm going to drop in another piece now and invite you, if you wish, to think of a person or a situation that brings up perhaps feelings of discomfort or ill will or resentment or anger or aversion. See something within yourself or something in relationship with another being or even some societal thing. Noticing what that feels like in your body and continuing to offer yourself kindness and compassion through the in-breath, but now through the out-breath as well, with each exhale, offering kindness, compassion, and something good to this other being or beings or entity even. And through the breath, as you breathe in, breathing in compassion for yourself, and as you breathe out, offering compassion, kindness, something good, metta. Offering the ease of breathing out. Perhaps in this situation, you might need more compassion, and you can breathe in manyfold, 3, 4, 5 compassions for yourself and one for the other. Or maybe there's an equal balance, one for me, one for them. Maybe they need more compassion right now. Maybe this, whatever is happening, is coming from their suffering, karma they're facing. One for me and two for them. Some balance, whatever balance of compassion in and compassion out. There's an ocean of compassion here to draw from. We're not depleting ourselves. We're not depleting anyone else. There's a vastness, an ocean of compassion. Breathe in and out, naturally following the rhythm of the breath, noticing the sensations of breathing. In the last few moments of this meditation, I'll drop in some phrases, some reflections on equanimity, upekkha. You might bring to mind the beings that you are offering compassion to, or the being. Recognizing everyone is on their own journey, their own life journey. And I may not be the cause of this suffering, nor do I have control or the power to change it, even though I really wish that I could. And these moments can be really difficult for me to bear, to witness, to be a part of. And yet, I may still try to help if I can. I still have the wish to alleviate this somehow as best I can. And recognizing that equanimity is also about flexibility as I meet the comings and goings of my life. Joys and sorrows are a natural part of my life. And I may be open and able to receive whatever is flowing through. Cultivating a clarity of heart and mind and a presence to meet the conditions of this life as they are. May I be open to receive whatever is here with clarity of heart and mind, with compassion for myself, for others. And releasing these phrases, these contemplations, just coming back to the breath, breathing naturally, normally, feeling the body here. Maybe listening to sounds in your environment or outside the room. The eyes are closed, gently opening the eyes, releasing this practice. Just taking a moment to settle in and reflect on your own, what you just experienced, how this practice was for you, what you noticed. And I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we'll have some time for sharing questions if anyone has. Thank you all for your practice.